Developing right now on Morning News Now, dire straits. This morning, Iran promising to retaliate after U.S. forces seize an Iranian-flagged cargo ship near the Strait of Hormuz. Tehran is now saying there's no plan for new peace talks, even as top U.S. officials head to the Middle East. The shaky situation is sending oil prices soaring again, and it all comes ahead of a Wednesday deadline to make a deal.
If there is no deal by Wednesday, will the president extend the ceasefire agreement?
Well, that's ultimately a decision for the president. Everything's on the table, and the president's made it very clear he is prepared to escalate, to de-escalate this conflict, as he should be.
This, as a new NBC News poll shows President Trump's approval rating has dropped to a new low, in part because of the war with Iran. We'll bring you updates from the Middle East to Washington. Also developing an unthinkable tragedy. This morning, 8 children ages 3 to 11 years old are now dead after a mass shooting in Louisiana. Police say the suspect, who was killed by officers, was the father of 7 of those victims. We'll have the latest from investigators. Plus, say it ain't snow. You heard that right. A springtime surprise for millions of people over the weekend as winter-like weather made a comeback from the Midwest to the Northeast. And it is not over yet. We're tracking frost and freeze alerts stretching across several states. The forecast for your work week coming up. And a glimmer of hope for millions of people diagnosed with one of the deadliest forms of cancer, the experimental vaccine that's already changing lives in early trials. Pancreatic cancer mRNA vaccines showing lasting results in an early trial. We'll have more on that. Good morning and happy Monday. Thanks for being here. I'm Stephen Romo in for Joe and Savannah today, and we have a lot to get to, beginning with the latest out of the Middle East, where there's new uncertainty surrounding that shaky ceasefire deal and the prospect for peace between U.S. and Iran. In what appears to be a dramatic escalation, President Trump said Sunday that U.S. forces seized an Iranian-flagged cargo ship after it allegedly attempted to breach a U.S. naval blockade. U.S. Central Command confirmed the ship was seized, saying it ignored repeated warnings to stop over a period of 6 hours. In response, Iran accused the U.S. of violating their fragile short-term ceasefire agreement, which is already set to expire on Wednesday. A spokesperson for Iran's military called the move an act of, quote, maritime piracy and vowed to retaliate. Now, this comes as the U.S. and Iran had already spent the weekend blaming each other for allegedly violating that ceasefire deal, with President Trump accusing Iran of firing on ships in the Strait of Hormuz and Iran effectively reclosing the strait on Saturday when the U.S. refused to stop blocking Iranian ports. That was just one day after Iran declared the critical passage was completely open. NBC News international correspondent Molly Hunter joins us now from Tel Aviv with the latest on this. Molly, good morning to you. So we're reaching nearly the end of that temporary ceasefire deal set to expire on Wednesday. It was already incredibly tense in the first place. Now, 2 senior U.S. administration officials telling NBC News that Vice President J.D. Vance is expected to lead another delegation to Pakistan to continue negotiations. What do we know about those potential talks and how this weekend's back and forth could impact them?
Yeah, Stephen, a lot of back and forth, and you did a really good job just there laying out kind of the chaos of words over the weekend. Big picture, we do not know that these negotiations, the second round of negotiations between the U.S. and Iran are happening. Now, from the U.S. side, the White House says, you laid out our sourcing already, 2 senior administration officials say that Vice President J.D. Vance will lead a delegation, which will include Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, that they are heading to Islamabad to meet with Iran. Now, Stephen, the problem is the Iranian side has not confirmed that they are going. Last night, again, state media laid out a whole litany of reasons that they will not commit to these talks, including unrealistic expectations by the U.S. side, frequent shifts in position, and importantly, that U.S. naval blockade. And, Stephen, that was all before the incident that you've already mentioned that I know we're going to get into in the Gulf of Oman.
Yeah, let's get to that, what happened in the Gulf of Oman on Sunday. Why does the U.S. say they seized this Iranian tanker in the first place? And what more do we know about how this unfolded?
Yeah, so, Stephen, it's important we say that all the information and all of the details about that operation are coming from the U.S. side, from CENTCOM, from President Trump. Now, late last night, President Trump put a post up on Truth Social where he announced this. He said that the Tuska, which is an Iranian-flagged cargo ship, tried to get past that U.S. naval blockade. He said then a U.S. destroyer had warned the Tuska over a 6-hour period and then fired on the engine room. We have video. I know we played some of that already. Then Trump says the Navy has custody of that ship, that they are seeing what's on board. It's important to note that the Tuska is sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury. President Trump says because of previous, quote, illegal activity. We didn't get a comment from the Iranians last night, but they have said today, Stephen, that they promised to retaliate.
And there's been so much back and forth here, Molly. The U.S. stopping ships, but Iran on Saturday reclosed the Strait of Hormuz, and that just came a day after saying it was completely open. So how did they retake control in the first place, and do we know why they decided to reverse course on this?
Yeah, we don't, Stephen. I think, again, big picture is that both sides are blaming the other, violating the ceasefire agreement, but also claiming full control over this vital waterway. So during the ceasefire, the U.S. announced a naval blockade of Iranian ports last week. Over the weekend, as you mentioned, Iran said, no, we control this waterway. They opened it for about 24 hours. About a dozen ships were able to pass through that vital waterway during that time. Then they announced they were closing it. Now, the U.S. maintains that they still control this waterway. Two competing blockades, I think, is the easiest, most clear way to sum up the current situation. But the fate of the Strait of Hormuz and certainly global oil prices depend on the possibility of these negotiations, Stephen.
Certainly keeping an eye on that and that Wednesday deadline. Molly Hunter, thank you. Well, this morning, Pope Leo is in the African country of Angola as part of his ongoing tour of the continent. It's the third stop on the pontiff's four-nation trip. The head of the Catholic Church has used this tour to speak out forcefully against the war and inequality, expressing views that have drawn attacks from President Trump. NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez has more on their conflicting messages.
This week, Pope Leo traveling across Africa, greeting the faithful on a continent where the number of Catholics is rising faster than anywhere else on the planet. But what should have been a joyful trip overshadowed by the war with Iran, violence in Lebanon, and an escalating public standoff with President Trump. The Pope has been an outspoken critic of the war, not holding back after the president's threat to Iran that their whole civilization will die.
Attacks on civilian infrastructure is against international law, but that it is also a sign of the hatred, the division, the destruction the human being is capable of.
The president firing back in multiple media appearances this week.
I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo. The Pope has to understand Iran, very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
And then going even further, posting an image on social media portraying himself as a Jesus-like figure. Even the president's most ardent supporters outraged, writing, "God shall not be mocked," and "there's no context where this is acceptable." Mr. Trump later taking the image down, offering this explanation.
And I thought it was me as a doctor and had to do with Red Cross as a Red Cross worker there, which we support.
The Pope not backing down as he boarded the papal plane for Africa this week.
I have no fear of neither the Trump administration nor speaking out loudly about the message of the gospel. And that's what I believe I am called to do, what the church is called to do.
There's a long history of popes speaking out against war. In 1917, Benedict XV called the First World War a useless slaughter, while John XXIII spoke out against nuclear weapons, and John Paul II forcefully opposed the U.S. invasion of Iraq. President Trump and Pope Leo weren't always at odds.
To have the Pope from the United States of America, that's a great honor.
Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance, who converted to Catholicism and met with the Pope in May, raised eyebrows this week with this comment.
In the same way that it's important for the Vice President of the United States to be careful when I talk about matters of public policy, I think it's very, very important for the Pope to be careful when he talks about matters of theology.
The Trump administration has repeatedly invoked Christian ideals as it justifies the war with Iran, casting it as a battle of good versus evil. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth calling on Americans to pray for victory and the safety of U.S. troops.
Please pray for them every day, on bended knee, with your family, in your schools, in your churches, in the name of Jesus Christ.
Pope Leo trying to turn down the temperature on Saturday, telling reporters his message of peace was written weeks ago.
It was looked at as if I was trying to debate, again, the president, which is not in my interest at all.
Strange situation. Raf Sanchez, thanks so much. Well, back here in the U.S., new poll results show President Trump's job approval rating sinking to a new low. The latest NBC News Decision Desk poll, powered by SurveyMonkey, shows just 37% of U.S. adults approve of Trump's performance as president. It's the lowest approval rating of his second term so far. Let's dig into this with NBC News reporter Gary Grumbach for more. Gary, thanks for being here. So this was a pretty big survey, more than 32,000 people polled. Now, no White House wants that 63% disapproval rating, a little more than a few months before the midterm elections here. So what are the issues that are really dragging down the scores for the president there?
Yeah, Stephen, sometimes we look at polls and we question them because it's not a significant sample size. This was 32,000 people. These are solid numbers, and they're showing a deeply unhappy American electorate. I want to dive into some of these numbers here. 68% of Americans right now disapprove of the president's handling of inflation and cost of living. And when we dive into these numbers, it's because everything is more expensive. Gas, groceries, buying a house, all more expensive today than it was just a few years ago. And inflation really blows the rest of the economic issues out of the water here. Look at the rest of this. 45% of Americans say the most important economic matter to them right now is inflation. If you look at one of the things that's driving these numbers right now, it is the president's approval rating on the war with Iran, and it matches up almost identically to the approval rating of inflation to begin with. So it's certainly a fascinating look at the American electorate here, Stephen.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who judge the economy not by the stock markets, but from the grocery markets, how the economy is doing. A lot of people unhappy with that. Gary, also interested in the demographics here. How did age and party affiliation play into these responses?
Yeah, what we're seeing here is that young people under the age of 29, what the kids call Gen Z these days, are unhappy the most with inflation and the cost of living. And that's because, think of it, when you're younger, you're getting your first job, you're perhaps getting your first house, you're trying to get your first car maybe, and those things are most expensive right now. And it's factoring into a really unhappy American electorate and people that are perhaps voting for the first or second times here in their elections. And it's also interesting because fewer Americans said the economic situation is better today than it was a year ago, than in any previous Decision Desk poll that we've taken during this president's second term here, Stephen.
And speaking of approval or disapproval of the president, Gary, we know the Trump administration is set to launch its tariff refund system today. American businesses that paid some huge customs bills can now request for that money to come back to them. That's after the Supreme Court ruling that President Trump's tariffs should be stricken down back in February, calling them unconstitutional. Do we know how this will actually play out, and any idea how many companies will try to get these refunds?
Yeah, this is a big deal and a long time coming for these more than 56,000 companies, everything from the biggest retailers of Walmart to your small mom and pop stores on the corner. They're trying to get some of the $127 billion that they are owed. Remember, the Supreme Court struck down president's use of IEEPA tariffs. That's where this money is coming from. And importers are now going to have to go onto this website and get their receipts for their electronic payments. But it may take 60 to 90 days for these payments to actually get to the importers, Stephen.
All right, something we're going to keep our eye on as well. Gary Grumbach, thanks for breaking that down for us. All right, let's head to Louisiana now. The city of Shreveport is grieving this morning after a horrific mass shooting there. Police say a man killed 8 children in the deadliest act of gun violence the country's seen in the last 2 years. That suspected shooter is also now dead. NBC News correspondent Ryan Chandler has more on what officials are describing as a domestic violence incident.
As the devastating details here in Shreveport, Louisiana continue to unfurl, NBC News can confirm the identity of the gunman who took the lives of 8 children in this house behind me. Shamar Elkins was the father of 7 of them, as 2 women are now fighting for their lives in the hospital, one of which was Elkins' wife.
Heartbreak in Louisiana.
It's a terrible morning in Shreveport, and we all mourn.
After a shocking morning of gun violence.
Right now, we have at least 10 individuals that were struck by gunfire last night in a domestic disturbance. 8 of these individuals are deceased.
The violence breaking out just after 6 in the morning here. Authorities say they responded to a domestic call spread between 2 residences where they found 10 people shot.
The ranges of the decedents are from 1 year of age to approximately 14 years of age. All of the deceased in this case are juveniles.
After that, police say the lone suspected gunman carjacked a vehicle and drove to neighboring Bossier City, leading police on a chase that ended in an exchange of gunfire.
At which point in time, Shreveport police officers did discharge their firearm, and that individual is deceased.
Families devastated.
To wake up and to hear this kind of news that someone would shoot 8 innocent children, it's just unreal.
No officers were injured in the pursuit, which spanned several miles and 4 different locations across the area.
I think about this community and what this community has lost, and I don't have the words to give you, and I'm sorry.
The people of Shreveport grappling with an unthinkable loss.
Just devastating. Our thanks to Ryan Chandler for that report. All right, turning now to the weather. Much of the country had been feeling like summer for a while, but that came to an abrupt end over the weekend when a cold front rolled in and temperatures plummeted. They had been nearly 25 degrees above normal in parts of the country, but that changed fast, even bringing snow to parts of the Northeast and New England. This change also brought some powerful winds. Take a look at this gust carrying some umbrellas through the stands in Pittsburgh during the Pirates game yesterday. The wind's so bad there, it temporarily delayed that game. And this cold front also hit the upper Midwest and plains, which are still cleaning up from the dozens of tornadoes last week. A sudden blast of snow and freezing temperatures hitting the Northeast.
Yesterday it was beautiful out, and then today I wake up to this.
Upstate New York getting a wintry mix in the middle of spring. 81 million Americans in the Midwest and Northeast now under frost and freeze alerts through Tuesday morning.
It is snowing. Good old Pennsylvania.
A Sunday morning surprise for folks in New Hampshire.
This is crazy. I can't believe it.
The cold front bringing quarter-size hail to Texas. And 48-mile-per-hour winds to Pennsylvania, sending umbrellas flying and putting quite the damper on the Pirates game in Pittsburgh. Meanwhile, the plains and upper Midwest cleaning up from dozens of tornadoes this weekend as they now brace for a freeze.
You never think it's going to be you, and then it's you, and now it's this.
Back on the East Coast, millions of Americans who just felt an early summer sizzle.
It's so crazy. I kind of don't know how to feel. I don't know how to dress for this weather.
Now getting a shock to the system as the cold makes a comeback. Hard to keep up with what to wear. And the coldest night, by the way, for the Northeast and New England should be tonight with widespread freeze watches already in effect. More on the forecast now with your Morning News Now weather. Meteorologist Michelle Grossman joins us now. Michelle, I'm not going to blame the meteorologists. I'm married to one. I know you guys don't like it, but a lot of people complaining about that cold.
I was going to say, you're going to hear it from Stephen, not from me, if you're going to complain about the weather. But yeah, the dogs in that video were the best dressed because they were in the coats, and you need the coats once again. You need the hats. It feels like winter, and we're going to feel like that for a couple days before that warmth comes back. Felt like summer last week. It feels like winter today. We have 90 million Americans under freeze alert. So if you planted those flowers early because you enjoyed that summer-like weather, you need to cover them up tonight. We're looking at freeze alerts, whether that's a frost advisory or a freeze warning from the Midwest, all throughout the Great Lakes, into the Northeast, and also the Mid-Atlantic. It's going to be a chilly start today, also a chilly start tomorrow. So dress those kids warmly at the bus stop. There's that temperature contrast. You see that dip, right? So that's allowing that cold air from Canada to kind of filter in, and it is chilly. It's chilly this morning, but we're going to see those daytime highs well below normal for this time of year. Out to the west, we have a ridge, an area of high pressure, and that's bringing in warmer air. So a big difference as we look across the country. Take a look at some of these temperatures. We're looking at temperatures in the 40s and 50s in the Northeast, 6 degrees below what is typical for this time of year in Chicago, 55, just 54 in Baltimore. And then there's that big difference out to the west, into the plains. Temperatures feeling summer-like there, near 80 degrees in Denver. That's 16 degrees above what is typical for this time of year. They're going to top out right around 79, and 94 degrees in Phoenix. That is today. Then as we go throughout tomorrow, we are also looking at temperatures below normal once again into the Northeast, well below normal in New York City, about 10 degrees below what is typical for this time in late April, 54. And then really warm temperatures out to the west. We're looking at temperatures in the 70s and 80s. But here's the good news. We're looking at over 30,000 runners today running 26.2 miles at the Boston Marathon. Big day. And we're looking at temperatures really nice for running. 44 degrees as we go throughout the morning, 49 by noon, and 3 p.m. we are looking at 51 degrees. Will be a teeny bit breezy, but not too bad. Looking at a really nice forecast for those runners. Out west, this will be a big story over the next several days. We're looking at a wet start. It was wet yesterday. It's going to be wet today. And then we're going to see that rain shield really expand tomorrow into the Pacific Northwest, into Pacific Northwest into Southern California as well. Heavy rain. We could see some flash flooding in spots, and also some snow will be falling in the Sierra Nevada mountains by tomorrow. We could see feet of snow there. So this is tomorrow where we see that snow transitioning, the rain transitioning to snow, and seeing that rain shield really grow from the Pacific Northwest to Southern California. Winter alerts for this time of year. We're looking along the Sierra Nevada mountains, over 6,000 feet by 5,500 feet. We're looking at 24 inches of snow is possible in some spots. So the skiers will be happy for at least another week or so there. There in Texas, we're looking at a frontal boundary kind of draped across Texas. It's kind of extending from Florida into Texas. You can see the rain is falling. Where you see those darker colors, the reds, the oranges, the yellows, that's where we're seeing the heaviest rain falling. And we do have the potential for seeing some flash flooding in some spots as we head throughout the afternoon. And this is why, because we're looking at that frontal boundary kind of parked over that area, bringing that wet weather. Stephen?
Looks like spring in Texas. All right, Michelle, thank you.
Yep.
Well, much more to come this morning on Morning News Now. Later this hour, a heist overseas fit for a Hollywood movie. A group of robbers taking dozens of people hostage to rob a bank before escaping underground. We'll take you to Italy, where a manhunt is now underway. But up first, after the break, the war with Iran causing a different kind of battle online. A look at how misinformation is complicating an already delicate situation. That's coming up next, so stick around. Welcome back. As the real U.S.-Iran war plays out in the Middle East, we have a look this morning at the misinformation war that's unfolding online. NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin explains how artificial intelligence is a new and growing force in the conflict.
A massive explosion on the Israeli port of Haifa. A blast outside an Iranian apartment building. A news report about key U.S. allies.
Every piece of what I'm about to walk you through is documented.
You'd be forgiven for thinking these are real videos from the Iran war. But every single one of them, according to forensic analysis, is fake. And in the case of the erroneous news report,
but here is the reality.
Debunked by the actual real-life reporter. After her post, at least some of the fake videos of her were taken down. Part of a wider information war playing out online, made possible by artificial intelligence.
The quantity of AI photos, images is unprecedented.
Masa Al-Mardani is the associate director of Witness, a human rights organization working on the impact of AI on video evidence.
The lie travels much faster than the truth. So even when we do see things debunked, people still have a vested interest in believing in the lies of that generated content.
She points to last month's alleged U.S. airstrikes on an Iranian elementary school in Minab, southern Iran. Killing more than 170, many of them children. Already a tragedy, with news organizations verifying the very real human toll. But the regime used AI in an apparent attempt to amplify the horror, posting this image of a bloodied backpack tweeted by the Iranian embassy in Austria.
We uploaded the image to Google's Gemini and quickly discover the image you've shared shows signs of being edited or generated by Google AI. A visual analysis also reveals several common indicators of AI generation.
When asked, Google directed us to a blog post about its AI verification technology, which says the company has, quote, long invested in ways to provide you with helpful context about information you see online. Then there are the parody videos.
You're my favorite toy.
Not meant to deceive, but to evoke emotions. Propaganda poking fun at a deadly serious situation.
If you block me, then I block you.
In this case, the Iranian embassy of South Africa posting an AI-generated music video about Trump's new strategy in the Strait of Hormuz. There's plenty of AI-generated misinformation coming from supporters of the U.S., too. Hours after President Trump announced the successful rescue mission over Easter weekend.
And he was
extracted from enemy territory.
This fake image went viral, even reposted by some U.S. lawmakers, purporting to show the rescued U.S. airmen before they took those posts down. It all means experts are increasingly sounding the alarm about a concept called the liar's dividend.
Just the very fact that we know that there is AI content in the information ecosystem makes people doubt things are real, and it works to the benefit of bad actors.
While Alam Ardani says fake content is being generated by all sides for the moment in the war for attention.
I do believe the regime is winning the narrative war in the information space.
Why?
They're winning because they have been studying the space and they've never had more raw material to work with.
Especially when that raw material can be generated in seconds and is fake.
Aaron McLaughlin reporting there. Aaron, thank you. Now to Italy, where a group of robbers are still on the run this morning after pulling off a brazen, almost cinematic bank heist. Authorities calling it a daring daytime robbery where the thieves allegedly burst into a bank, took hostages so they could steal from safety deposit boxes. NBC News international correspondent Danielle Hamamdjian has more.
It was a regular Thursday morning in the southern Italian city of Naples until the crowds started to form. All eyes on the local branch of the French Credit Agricole Bank, where a brazen daytime robbery was underway. The bandits, according to local media, breaking in, taking 25 people hostage. Police rushing to the scene, smashing the windows and making their way in. The sound of apparent stun grenades could be heard. Moments later, customers and staff who had been held hostage for nearly 2 hours were rescued, one by one released. No injuries, but some visibly in shock. One hostage telling Corriere della Sera, "They locked us inside a room and said, leave all the phones here." By the time police got inside, the robbers had vanished, leaving behind dozens of empty safe deposit boxes. Local media reporting that the thieves escaped through a tunnel leading to the sewers. Water company workers later seen with tools believed to have been used by the robbers. No arrests have been made and a hunt is now underway. Italy's leading news agency ANSA, citing internal surveillance footage, says the robbers entered the bank with their faces covered in tights, and at least one apparently wore a mask resembling an actor's face. It also reports police found prop weapons left at the scene. How much was stolen is still unclear. Customers lined up outside the bank to find out if their belongings were still safe. Danielle Hamamdjian, NBC News.
Really want to know what actor's face was that mask of. We'll find out. Well, coming up on Morning News Now, it could be a game changer for millions of cancer patients and their families.
Pancreatic cancer is often a death sentence. Every day I wake up and thank God I'm here.
Wow. We'll tell you more about the experimental vaccine that's showing promise for treating one of the deadliest forms of cancer. We'll be right back. We're back now with promising news on a potential breakthrough for pancreatic cancer patients. It's one of the deadliest forms of cancer. Only 13% of people who get diagnosed live for more than 5 years. NBC News correspondent Ann Thompson reports on the experimental treatment that's giving patients new hope.
Today, Donna Gustafson is the picture of health, something the 72-year-old grandmother couldn't have imagined 6 years ago visiting her daughter in Australia.
We went to the emergency room in Australia to get an IV, thinking I was low on fluids, and they told me that I had pancreatic cancer.
What were your chances of survival?
Well, they never really want to tell you. But pancreatic cancer is often a death sentence.
In New York, she had surgery to remove the tumor and was scheduled for chemo until she was offered to be the first person to get an experimental vaccine at Memorial Sloan Kettering.
It was a no-brainer. I knew that statistically the odds were against me.
The vaccine works by taking the patient's tumor and creating a personalized mRNA vaccine that teaches their immune system to fight the cancer cells.
So we actually have to measure.
Leading the research is Dr. Vinod Balachandran. He showed us Donna's dramatic immune response.
Even at 6 years, you can find the immune cells made by the vaccine circulating in her blood at very high levels.
She received 8 infusions of the vaccine, chemo, a booster, and is cancer-free. What have you done with those extra 6 years?
We have had such a wonderful time. Ed and I celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. I was here to see 2 more of my grandchildren.
Donna's story is part of new data being presented at a major cancer conference. What kind of difference could this make?
Pancreatic cancer is the toughest, so our hope is if we can crack the toughest, hopefully we can learn how to crack the rest.
Of 16 people in a phase 1 trial, 8 had a response to the vaccine. 2 saw their cancer come back, but not Donna.
Every day I wake up and thank God I'm here.
Now living, she says, in a state of gratefulness. Ann Thompson, NBC News, Saddle River, New Jersey.
Fascinating stuff. And for more on this, let's bring in NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel. Dr. Patel, good morning to you. So I understand pancreatic cancer is notoriously resistant to immune responses. So can you tell us more about how this vaccine might work?
Yeah, Stephen, it's incredible. And the data, as Ann covered, shows that this is something that we're going to watch closely. It's not a preventive vaccine like a flu shot. It's a treatment vaccine that's made for an individual patient after the surgeons remove their tumor. So researchers analyze the tumor's DNA, pick the mutations that are most likely to look foreign to your immune system, and then use messenger RNA. Remember, that's the familiar concept that we had in the vaccines for COVID, to teach the body to make immune cells that specifically hunt down cancer cells and don't attack normal cells. And that matters because pancreatic cancer has been so hard to treat with this type of approach ever. So the vaccine approach over 9 doses appears to make some of those tumors more visible to treatment.
It is fascinating to think about a vaccine being able to do that as a treatment. We hear them so often for prevention. So the results for the phase 1 trial are supposed to be presented today at the annual meeting for the American Association for Cancer Research happening in San Diego. So what's most important for people to understand about these results?
Yeah, so the most important piece here is exactly kind of the number, phase 1. That means it's the first encouraging signal in what we hope will be more encouraging signals. It's not quite proof yet. And this was a small trial. Phase 1 trials are really meant to kind of show that early signal. 16 patients, half of those patients mounted an immune response, like you heard Ann cover with Donna. But many of those patients also we need to show this over larger trials. So we're going to start to see global trials being run. And I think that's going to be the next step to think about how patients can get this.
And hearing that number, the phase 1, it makes you wonder how long could it be before this treatment is widely available for people who are diagnosed?
Yeah, so that next step, that global kind of phase 2 trial, and keep in mind, like just what we described, you have to have the surgery, then you have to have the tailored vaccine, then you have to have traditional chemotherapy, that really can be done at specialized cancer centers that are ready to do this type of vaccine production. So that's going to be a handful of places globally, but that's what we're going to see unfold, and we'll wait for that phase 2 data. And then I think the next step from there is to look at the signals and safety, and just to see how much of this can be tackled in a broader setting. So we're still probably years away from having something, but I think that this gives hope to anyone who gets that diagnosis and should talk to their doctor about their eligibility for trials.
Yeah, certainly giving a lot of people hope. I was fascinated to learn, Dr. Patel, there's no routine screening for pancreatic cancer, like we have the colonoscopy or even a mammogram. That doesn't exist for pancreatic cancer. Is there anything people can do to try to catch pancreatic cancer earlier or even identify if they might be at risk?
Yeah, this is the hardest thing, and it is truly one of those mysteries that researchers around the world have been trying to also chase, something that we can do to make a diagnosis from blood or from some sort of tissue. In the meantime, I would say any symptoms that are problematic, whether it's dehydration, like you heard in the package that Anne covered in the interview, or weight loss that's unexplained. Some people I've seen with skin color changes, something that just seems off, even if it's gradual. That's something to come into the doctor for. And also, especially if you have a family history or knowledge that somewhere in your family there might have been a history of pancreatic cancer. Also time to speak up and talk to your doctor about any potential diagnostic tools they could use.
Good tips. When in doubt, get it checked out. All right, Dr. Kavita Patel,
right.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, coming up, bracing for layoffs. Meta reportedly gearing up to let go 10% of its workforce in the first wave of cuts. We'll have the latest in your Money Minute. And a story that may make you want to run or maybe run away. We'll take you to China, where humans and robots raced side by side in a history-making half marathon. Morning News Now. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This morning, thousands of runners are taking to the streets of eastern Massachusetts for the 130th Boston Marathon. It is an American tradition that brings many of the world's fastest runners together across an unforgettable New England landscape. But overseas in China, it's the humanoid half marathon that is making headlines, in part because I think it's pretty terrifying. NBC News international correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer gives us a look at the robots who outpace the humans in the race for the future.
At a half marathon pitting Chinese humanoid robots beside real-life runners, it was the machines making huge strides. The winner, called Lightning, finishing the 13 miles in just 50 minutes, 26 seconds, breaking the human world record by nearly 7 minutes. Built by smartphone maker Honor, which swept the top 3 spots with their bots.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
It was a technological leap from last year's race.
This year, nearly half of the robots that are running are autonomous, meaning they're literally running on their own. The others are being controlled by people.
Even the human runners were impressed. The spectacle here speaks to a bigger race between China and the U.S. to develop machines that think and move like people.
You ready? Go.
China has more than 150 humanoid-making companies. That said, this public tech test was not without its setbacks. There were face plants near the starting line and at the finish, too, with some swerving and wobbling in between, suggesting humanoids aren't ready to totally take over quite yet. Janice Mackey-Frayer, NBC News, Beijing.
I want to know who won, if Janice won or the robot. We'll have to find out. My money's on Janice. Well, now to your Money Minute, where we're learning from Reuters that Meta is planning for its first round of layoffs this year. NBC News business and economy reporter Ali Canal has your Money Minute. Good morning, Ali.
Yeah, good morning, Stephen. According to Reuters, the company is planning a new round of layoffs that's starting in May. The cuts would impact about 10% of its workforce, or roughly 8,000 employees, with more cuts possibly coming later this year. The move comes as Meta pours billions into AI, and if confirmed, these would be its biggest cuts since the company's year of efficiency restructuring back in 2022. NBC News has reached out, and Meta told us they have no comment on the report at this time. Meanwhile, Ford is recalling nearly 1.4 million F-150 pickups. That's according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. The issue is a gear shift problem that could cause the truck to suddenly drop into a lower gear, slowing the vehicle without warning and increasing the risk of a crash. The NHTSA says Ford is aware of at least one accident and hundreds of reports potentially linked to the issue. Drivers can check the agency's website to see if their vehicle is affected. And finally, at the box office, the Super Mario Galaxy movie is still on top, pulling in another $35 million over the weekend and continuing its run as the biggest film of the year, at least so far. The movie was distributed by our sister company, Universal, which has already brought in nearly $750 million globally and is now on track to cross that coveted $1 billion mark. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it yet. I need to.
But apparently the reviews are great.
Wow.
People love it.
I believe it. My niece had a Princess Peach birthday party a few years ago.
I was going to say, the youngins love it.
They are big fans. All right, Ali, thanks so much.
Of course, thank you.
Well, one filmmaker in Nigeria is using artificial intelligence in a fascinating way to preserve Africa's history. He's called the tool Legacy Link, and it collects the voices and experiences of older generation. His goal? to give people a chance to interact with their ancestors far into the future. NBC News Now anchor Gotti Schwartz gives us a closer look.
It is the storyteller who makes us what we are, who creates history, the words of famed Nigerian writer Chinua Achebe, finding new meaning today in a project by a young Nigerian filmmaker, embracing both the past and the future. Malik Afebua is recording Africa's people, places, and artifacts using AI tech to keep them alive, and the goal is to allow future generations to actually do the impossible, have conversations with their ancestors.
For the first time in history, the next generation will get to meet their ancestors and speak to them and ask questions.
He calls it Legacy Link, and it starts with interviewing people who are 80 and above.
To find out what life was like 60, 70 years ago, 80 years ago, in correlation to what life is like today, in projection to what life will be 50, 60 years from now.
Legacy Link will combine research, data collection, and interviews that will span at least a decade and expand across the entire African continent. Malik is using conversations across generations and turning them into something you don't just watch, but actually engage in.
It's going to be like a public installation, like a hologram, where you could just access it and also link your legacy and your heritage from your last name, so where you're from, to your village.
He's also using the material he's gathering to create a potentially powerful database.
We're collecting tons and tons of, ethically sourced data, so we turn them into zeros and ones, that we could create our own actual, large language models, AI systems, like literally everything from scratch, from the ground up.
Legacy Link is a work in progress and a continuation of his mission to preserve histories and narratives of older generations in creative ways. He's used AI to reimagine Africa's past and is using virtual reality to record places like these traditional dye pits in northern Nigeria so people can experience them from afar. His 2023 Elder series dresses seniors in stylish fits and used AI to place them in modern contexts. All that evolved into something much bigger.
To actually document history, preserve it for the next generation as well, but also, most importantly, make sure that we're better represented in the future.
For Malik, the way stories are preserved matters just as much as the stories themselves. And with Legacy Link, he hopes those stories won't just be remembered by future generations, but will help guide their path.
I feel like history could shape the direction of the future in terms of if we actually understand who we are, where we're from, we will know where we're going because we could preserve that essence.
Gotti Schwartz, NBC News.
Fascinating stuff, Gotti, thank you. Well, back home, we're also looking ahead. America will celebrate its 250th birthday in July. And as we get closer to the 4th, today's Jenna Bush Hager sat down exclusively with each of the 4 surviving former U.S. presidents on just how far we've come as a nation and what could come next.
So I think my message is, don't give up on America. We're the longest lasting, freely elected government in history now. And a lot of people didn't think we'd make it this long. I think it'd be a good thing if we made it longer. So everybody should be thinking about that this year. Do I want to make it longer? Because if I do, then I have to favor cooperation over constant conflict. And I have to be willing to lose as well as win.
We're the most unique country in the world. Most unique country in the world in the sense that we really do think democracy is dictated by the rules of the Constitution. And we do believe, and we act, and when we do well, that all men are created equal. Everyone's entitled to a shot. That everybody has a shot. And I think as we do that, people, it grows instead of focusing on divisions. Because we're not nearly as divided as we're being portrayed.
If we hold true to that idea, that we the people have been gifted this chance of self-government, if we pay attention to our responsibilities and our duties, and if we extend respect and thoughtfulness to our fellow citizens, even if we disagree with them, if we understand that part of this democratic project is to sort through our differences in peaceful, legal ways, then I'm confident that we're going to have another 250-year run that's going to be just as good.
My message is consider yourself fortunate to be a part of a great nation. Study our history so you have a better sense for what the future will be like. And be a citizen, not a spectator. And by that, I mean participate in the process, but also love a neighbor like you'd like to be loved yourself.
And we thank Jenna for that report. Coming up on Morning News Now, one of the most successful children's book authors starting a new chapter right in his hometown.
When we got our first royalty check for Diary of a Wimpy Kid, we spent it on buying the building. And we thought, well, what could serve everyone from ages 2 to like 98? And we thought, a bookstore.
Love that wide range. Up next, we'll take you to Massachusetts for a new look at the Wimpy Kid headquarters. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and we end this hour with an inside look at one of the most successful kids authors of all time. Jeff Kinney's Diary of a Wimpy Kid books hold the record as the longest-running children's series ever on the New York Times bestsellers list. But alongside all that success, Kinney and his wife Julie have made it their mission to give back to their community. NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Melas went to the headquarters of the hit series in Plainsville, Massachusetts, to get a sneak peek at Jeff's latest project.
To his young readers, Jeff Kinney is a literary rock star. You're my favorite author. His Diary of a Wimpy Kid is one of the best-selling book series of all time, with more than 300 million books sold.
This is my sketchbook. This is where I came up with my ideas for Greg Heffley and his family.
Goodness. The adventures of middle schooler Greg Heffley have spawned 20 books and 8 movies.
Stop! Good God, man! You almost got the cheese touch.
I think that the books are funny, which kids really need something that's funny in their world.
I don't think that there is a child under the age of 15 in the world who doesn't know your series.
That's crazy because I write these books right here in Plainville, Massachusetts.
Plainville, Massachusetts, just 40 miles south of Boston, has a population of 10,000, including Kinney and his wife Julie, who have lived there for more than 2 decades.
How did you guys, though, find Plainville in the first place?
We drew a Venn diagram around 2 airports and then where Julie's parents live, and right in the middle, in the interlocking center, was Plainville, Massachusetts.
Today, Plainville is home to the official Wimpy Kid headquarters.
It's a really fun space. It's really creative. It's very bright and colorful. You can see...
Is this cheese?
It is. It's a giant piece of cheese. We're on the 3rd floor of a building that holds my bookstore, An Unlikely Story, and this is where I work.
So talk to me about why you decided to build a bookstore.
There used to be a building in the center of the town, right on the spot where we are. It was called Falk's Market, and it was an old general store. And when we moved here, it had been abandoned for about 17 years. When we got our first royalty check for Diary of a Wimpy Kid, we spent it on buying the building. And we thought, well, what could serve everyone from ages 2 to like 98? And we thought, a bookstore.
And for the past 4 years, Kinney has been working on his next chapter, revitalizing more of his beloved town.
We really love the community, and we're trying to build out the downtown and make it into something really special.
The project, which Kinney estimates will cost him $25 million, includes building out a restaurant, park, and beer garden across the street from his bookstore.
This is going to be a town green and an anchor restaurant. I know it doesn't look like it now, but it's about 3 or 4 acres here. And we just wanted to create these spaces where people could gather, where we could get to know our neighbors. We're in the Guild Garden, which will open soon. But the cool thing about beer gardens these days is that they're really family friendly. So you're gonna see a lot of kids running around in here, maybe some pets too. There we go. We're really hoping that this might be a template for other towns, that other towns could look at how we did it, learn from it, and then build in their own towns.
A build that he and his wife plan to finish in 2031.
So the name of your bookstore is called An Unlikely Story.
Yes.
And this kind of seems like an unlikely project.
It is an unlikely story. It's so unusual how all of this happened, and I feel so blessed that we get to do this and make a big difference in our town.
From building one of the most beloved worlds in children's books to rebuilding in the real world.
There's a Greek proverb that says, a community becomes great when old men plant trees whose shade they'll never enjoy. And I think that's happening here for us. We're going to plant those trees, and one day our grandkids will enjoy it, or kids who grow up here in Plainville.
Really cool. Our thanks to Chloe Melas for that story. And there's more good news for the Wimpy fans. Creator Kenny said there's going to be another Wimpy Kid movie out later this year called The Getaway, and it is holiday themed. That's on top of the latest Wimpy book, Fight or Flight, coming this October. So lots to look forward to there. And that's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now. But your news continues right now. Good Monday morning. Thanks for being here. I'm Stephen Romo in for Joe and Savannah today. And right now on Morning News Now, growing frustration. President Trump once again ramping up threats against Iran over the weekend as the Strait of Hormuz tension continues. Iran is now accusing the U.S. of violating their fragile ceasefire deal just a couple days before it's set to expire. That's after the U.S. seized an Iranian cargo ship. All this as new polling shows the war is pulling down President Trump's approval rating as Americans feel frustrations of their own as well. We'll break down those numbers along with the latest from the Middle East. Meanwhile, here at home, a tragedy in Louisiana, a community reeling after an awful shooting left 8 children dead, the youngest just 1 year old.
I think about this community and what this community has lost. And I don't have the words to give you, and I'm sorry.
We're on the ground in Louisiana with what we're learning from police this morning as neighbors grapple with that aftermath. Plus, planning ahead, a new survey finds that Americans are growing more concerned about not having enough money saved for retirement. Lucky for us, friend of the show Caleb Silver is here with tips on how people can better prepare. And finally, a celebration fit for a queen. Britain is celebrating Queen Elizabeth II ahead of what would have been her 100th birthday. How the royals are honoring her life and legacy coming up later this hour. A lot to get to this morning, and we begin with the growing tension in the Middle East and a countdown to the end of that ceasefire, the short-term deal between the U.S. and Iran, which is set to expire on Wednesday. But both countries spent the weekend blaming each other for allegedly violating that ceasefire. Iran accused the U.S. of piracy for seizing an Iranian-flagged cargo ship in the Gulf of Oman, and President Trump vowed to strike Iranian power plants and bridges if they failed to reach a long-term deal. NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons joins us now from Pakistan with more on this. Keir.
Hey there, good day to you. The Pakistanis clearly believe these talks between the Iranians and the U.S. are still on. Take a look at that closed-off freeway behind me as they build a security bubble ready for the arrival of the vice president. There have been helicopters overhead, and yet it's been a weekend of whiplash, raising questions about whether the talks really will go ahead, with clashes around the Strait of Hormuz. This is the way America and Iran were talking this weekend.
We're prepared to subject you to disabling fire.
A U.S. naval destroyer firing on an Iranian cargo ship Sunday, blowing a hole in its engine room, President Trump said. The footage, released by CENTCOM, then shows U.S. Marines rappelling onto the deck of the Tuska at night. The U.S. says the ship had defied America's blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. The incident may put pressure on Iran to negotiate, or it may jeopardize this week's potential high-stakes talks. Iran this morning accusing the U.S. of piracy, demanding President Trump lift his blockade. But the president responding on social media, that won't happen until a deal is 100% done. And the Trump administration upping the stakes, saying it's negotiating with a divided Iranian leadership and accusing Iran of sending mixed messages over Hormuz.
Well, you saw real confusion on the Iranians' part. I think that shows the discord within their ranks after devastating attacks on their leadership.
This morning, Iran still not confirming whether it will send a delegation here to Islamabad, the city already on lockdown. The White House saying Vice President J.D. Vance would once again lead the talks, Last time, despite hours of face-to-face meetings, the two sides could not agree on a deal. This time, the ceasefire is set to end within days. And today, more mixed messages for the Trump team to deal with in these negotiations. The Iranian military threatening retaliation for the boarding of that ship around the Strait of Hormuz. On the other hand, the president of Iran, President Pezeshkian, emphasizing diplomacy in a statement that he put out today. The Turkish foreign minister telling me there will have to be an extension to the ceasefire if these negotiations are going to end in success.
A lot riding on that, Keir. Thank you. Well, the United States' ongoing standoff with Iran has become President Trump's most critical foreign policy test of his second term so far. And the president's job approval rating has sunk to a new low, with many Americans expressing concern about the conflict as well as rising costs. That's according to an NBC News Decision Desk poll powered by SurveyMonkey. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez joins us from Washington with the latest from the Trump administration on this one. Good morning, Gabe. So as we heard from Keir there, the U.S. and Iran blaming each other for jeopardizing that shaky ceasefire deal, which is expected to expire on Wednesday. What has President Trump had to say about the reclosing of the Strait of Hormuz and the potential for those peace talks?
Well, hi, Stephen. Good morning. Well, the president has dramatically shifted his tone over the last several days. Over the weekend, posting when it came to the Strait of Hormuz, he started out saying that Iran's leadership he started out praising them, calling them reasonable. Once again, ramping up his threats, though, over the weekend. He posted, "We're offering a very fair and reasonable deal, and I hope that they take it, because if they don't, the United States is going to knock out every single power plant and every single bridge in Iran." The president adding, "No more Mr. Nice Guy." Now, asked about that rhetoric, a top administration official explaining it as President Trump trying to get maximum leverage in these negotiations, Stephen.
And Gabe, we know Iran is now pushing back on the prospect of this new round of peace talks. But what are we hearing from the Trump administration about the potential negotiations in Pakistan?
Well, look, the president has said that he plans to deploy a team of negotiators to Islamabad. You heard Keir speak about that as well. We understand that Vice President J.D. Vance is expected to lead these negotiations once again. Also, the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, as well as his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, are expected to go to Pakistan. But this is all so up in the air, Steve. And again, as Iran is coming back and arguing that, they have not committed to these talks yet. The question right now is whether Iran will show up. Now, in addition to control over the Strait of Hormuz, there are plenty of other critical points to iron out, particularly over curbing Iran's ability to develop nuclear weapons. Now, President Trump is claiming that Iran has agreed to let the U.S. go into the country and remove its enriched uranium, which experts say could be used to make a nuclear bomb. But again, Iran is saying that enriched uranium will not be transferred anywhere, Stephen.
No clarity there. All right, Gabe. We also wanted to ask you about these poll numbers. They suggest the war is becoming an increasingly big problem for the president politically. What else are we learning?
Yeah, that's right. Look, the war is dragging President Trump's approval rating down to a new low. Just 37% of American adults approve of his performance, according to the poll. Now, in December, that number was 42%. And likely driving that drop is that 2/3 of Americans do not approve of his handling of the war. The economy is also a major factor, and with oil and gas prices soaring in recent weeks and inflation beginning to spike, 68% disapprove of the president's handling of inflation and the cost of living. That is up 8 points since last year. All of this is top of mind, Stephen, for Republicans heading into the midterm election campaign.
Those midterms creeping up soon. All right, Gabe, thanks so much. Wall Street is anxiously watching this all unfold as well. Here to talk more is NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung. Brian, good morning to you. Thanks for being here. So the prices of oil plummeted on Friday with news that the Strait would be reopening. Since then, there's been even more tension. Talk to us about this whiplash and volatility.
Yeah, well, I mean, it has to do with the whiplash in the geopolitical headlines coming out of the region, as you just explored with both Keir and Gabe. And I think that the story here is that last week we were talking about oil prices coming down, and now we're seeing overnight oil prices rising. And for that reason, that could literally bleed into higher prices at the pump for regular Americans as well. I think the big story here is what happens with the headlines out of the Middle East. It's as binary as when things look like they're positive, you have the stock markets going higher, you have oil prices going down. But it seems like over the weekend, there has been some, let's call it pullback in the optimism that the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil travels through, is going to be reopened. If it stays closed and ships don't want to go through there, then you're going to see markets react negatively to that.
You mentioned the price at the pump. How has the ceasefire affected gas prices?
Yeah, well, right now, $4.04. That is the average according to AAA. That is lower than what we had seen at the beginning of last week when prices were a little bit closer to $4.13. That was welcome news for Americans that we're seeing over the course of about 6 weeks, skyrocketing prices at the pump. But here's the thing, Stephen, as we were just talking about, because of the fact that we're now a little bit less optimistic about boats actually moving through the Strait of Hormuz, there's now reason to think that those prices are going to U-turn, and that, yes, even though we've gotten a decline of about 10 cents over the last week, we could erase those gains in this week if oil prices increase. That's the reason why you have analysts saying for that reason they expect to see oil prices rise. And we even heard from the administration over the weekend, Chris Wright, he's the energy secretary, saying he doesn't see gas prices at the pump going down below $3, the national average, until the end of this year, potentially even next year. So for that reason, there's reason to think that we're buckling in for higher prices.
Yeah, volatility at the pump as well. And Brian, while we have you, I wanted to ask, so the government opening a portal, tariff refund portal that companies can apply to get refunds for those tariffs that the Supreme Court struck down. Do we know more about how this is going to work? And more importantly, will any of this cash trickle down to consumers?
Yes, Stephen, this is going to be the hottest website in town. All these companies that have been paying these tariffs ever since the president announced them in that Rose Garden announcement that you see, the video of from last year, they've been paying these tariffs, and the Supreme Court in February of this year, as you'll recall, struck them down. And so these companies since then have been saying, how do I get my money back if I paid those tariffs? Well, now there's this online portal that's going to open up today. It's called ACE. It's run by the Customs and Border Protection. They are going to allow people to apply for refunds. Again, it's not consumers, it's businesses. But the question naturally for consumers is, if my business gets a refund, will I get a refund too? But pump the brakes on that. There was a recent CNBC CFO survey that suggested corporate leaders do not see consumers getting a refund, in part because the companies say it's going to take them a while to get that. Many of those surveyed leaders saying they expect that it could take them over a year to get those refunds. As we know, the government, a bit of a slow response sometimes in situations like this, but we'll have to see.
The government's slow, the company's slow, consumers, I'm sure, not happy about that.
Yeah, that's
right. Brian Chung, thanks so much. We appreciate it. All right, let's head to Louisiana now, where we are learning more about the young victims of that horrific mass shooting in Shreveport over the weekend. Police say a man killed 8 children in the deadliest act of gun violence the country's seen in the last 2 years. That suspected shooter is also now dead. NBC News correspondent Ryan Chandler joins us now from Shreveport for more on this just devastating. Ryan.
Stephen, that's right. It's just incomprehensible. It's an act that police are calling evil. Those 8 children were killed in this house behind me, they say, in an act that neighbors here are struggling to even make sense of. Pulled out into the street yesterday to try and pray together and process their pain.
This morning, neighbors across Shreveport, Louisiana, grappling with the aftermath of a massacre.
There is no sense in this.
Officials say the deadly act of domestic violence took the lives of 8 children between 1 and 12 years old.
The female saying there's 9 subjects that live inside the residence. Say he may have shot them all.
Police tell us early Sunday morning, Shamar Elkins shot his wife and another woman they believe was his girlfriend. Both of them are still alive.
They have a female with a gunshot wound to the face, saying the assailant left the scene.
Authorities say he then executed the children in this home. 7 of them were his own.
It is a disgusting and evil scene that our officers experienced.
Elkins then fled the area in a stolen vehicle, leading police on a chase. Home security video capturing the frantic moments. Officers caught up to him and exchanged gunfire.
Shots fired.
Elkins was pronounced dead at the scene. Police tell us he had been on their radar before. Convicted in 2019 for the illegal use of a weapon. They say it's likely he was illegally in possession of the handgun and the rifle-style pistol used in this attack due to being a convicted felon. Elkins served in the Louisiana State National Guard for 7 years. He was never deployed and left in 2020 as a private.
Obviously, something snapped with this guy, and he went on this rampage. We had no way to predict that it was going to happen.
Now, as both adult victims remain in the hospital with serious injuries, their loved ones are leaning on community to hold together a broken family.
It doesn't make sense at all to wake up and to hear this kind of news that someone would shoot 8 innocent children. It's just unreal.
And Stephen, as we all still try to make sense of this, one of the concerns among people here is whether Elkins's mental well-being may have been a factor here. Though in my conversations with police yesterday, they told me that while he did have a criminal history, he was not actively on their radar. They had no indication that he was planning such an awful crime, Stephen.
Such troubling details. Our Ryan Chandler for us in Louisiana. Ryan, thank you. Well, you may need to dig out those winter coats yet again, as temps are at least 10 degrees below average from the Northeast to the Mid-Atlantic. Let's get your Morning News Now weather. Meteorologist Michelle Grossman joins us. Hey, Michelle.
Good morning, Stephen. Yeah, you're going to need those coats, the hats, even maybe some gloves, because it is chilly this morning. It's going to be chilly once again tomorrow morning. And those daytime highs, as you said, well below normal for this time of year. Let's take a look at the week ahead, starting with today, because the first thing I see with this map is it's quiet, right? We're looking at, we had a really active week last week with severe weather. That is not going to be the case over the next few days. So that's the good news. But the biggest story, yes, is that spring chill in portions of New England, the Northeast, into the Ohio Valley, parts of the Mid-Atlantic. And then we're looking at a wet west. We're looking at a Pacific storm moving onshore, bringing wet weather to the west coast today, especially targeting northern and central California. And then it's going to expand tomorrow into the Pacific Northwest and also southern California and also the Great Basin. In Texas, we have a frontal boundary that's kind of parked from Florida all the way to Texas. That's going to bring some showers and storms. It's kind of a magnet bringing off that Gulf water. And we're going to see the chance for localized flooding there. So that's going to be a story today and also tomorrow. We'll see that shift a little bit further into eastern Texas on Tuesday. By Wednesday, you notice that rain still falling in portions of the Gulf Coast states into eastern Texas near record highs. So we have that cool air today in the east, and we have record highs or potential record highs in the west, really above normal in the west, where we'll see temperatures 20 degrees above what is normal for this time of year in some spots. That will hold on until Wednesday. Notice the northwest, we're looking at some showers and storms, and we're talking about snow in the Sierra Nevada mountains over 5,500 feet. Could see feet of snow there, even 24 inches in some spots. We'll be warm in the southeast on Wednesday. And then as we end up this work week, we're looking at severe storms in portions of the Mississippi Valley, rain extending from the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, into portions of the Gulf Coast states, Rockies, snow, and we're still chilly in portions of New England, but we're warming up into the Northeast, also the Mid-Atlantic. Notice those 80s. Back into the map by Friday. So let's talk about that temperature difference, because we are warmer than average in the west, cooler than average in the east. And this is why. Notice that jet stream. It's dipped so far to the south. That's sort of like opening the doors to that colder air in Canada. It's filtering in, and that's why we're going to see temperatures below normal. And we're only in the 40s and 50s by the end of the day today. We're looking at 54 in Baltimore. That's 13 degrees below what is typical for this time of year. Big difference out west. We're looking at Denver, 79. That's about 16 degrees above what they expect for late April or mid to late April. That holds true tomorrow. We're looking at temperatures still chilly in New York City, in Raleigh, 69 tomorrow, below normal there, and temperatures into the 70s and 80s throughout the west into the plains. Kansas City, 80 degrees tomorrow. That's 12 degrees above what is typical for this time of year. But here's the good news. We're looking at temperatures warming up, and then we do have those winter alerts along the Sierra Nevada mountains. Good news for the skiers, where we're going to see feet of snow in some spots. Stephen?
All right, Michelle, a spring forecast. We appreciate it. And heading now to Florida, where the NTSB is investigating after a deadly plane crash. It went down in a neighborhood near Tampa. NBC News correspondent Dana Griffin has more.
Oh, my God. This was the terrifying moment in Wesley Chapel, Florida. Christina Galbiati witnessed a plane go down in her neighborhood.
It was loud. It sounded mechanical. It sounded rumbling, just like a gurgle. Everything seemed fine, but then I saw it curve and then just go straight down.
Her family ran over to help, but there wasn't much she could do. This was the aftermath, the plane crashing into a neighbor's backyard, the pilot killed.
How would you describe the wreckage?
Ash, just ash and rubble.
The NTSB now investigating what went wrong after the Cessna departed a nearby flight center 25 miles north of Tampa and within walking distance to the neighborhood where over the years other crashes have occurred like this deadly May 2020 incident. But what stands out for Christina is the selfless maneuver she says the pilot took to avoid hitting homes.
You know, I saw a heroic moment where a split-second decision of he knew he was coming in fast and needed to do something.
The pilot's final seconds before impact may have averted greater loss. Dana Griffin, NBC News.
Well, much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, resilient runner. The 130th Boston Marathon is getting underway this morning, and one Massachusetts teen is not letting health challenges stop him from running a different version of that race. But that's not the only run unlike any other. Up first, robots versus runners. Competitors in a China half marathon are facing opponents of a very different caliber. So who came out on top? We'll tell you coming up next. Welcome back. Faith is set to be the focus for President Trump tomorrow. He's scheduled to take part in a public Bible reading. But on the topic of religion, the president can't seem to escape the uproar caused by his recent public attacks on Pope Leo over the pontiff's anti-war messages. NBC's Ann Thompson joins us now for a closer look at this controversy. Just an odd situation here, Ann.
Odd is one word, bizarre, unprecedented, weird, all being used to describe this back and forth between these two most powerful Americans. Over the weekend, Pope Leo tried to end what has become a distraction on his first major international trip.
This morning, a joyous reception for Pope Leo in Angola, the third country on his African trip. An 11-day journey where Leo has described himself as a pilgrim of peace.
The masters of war pretend not to know that it takes only a moment to destroy. Yet often, a life is often not enough to rebuild.
Now Leo explaining that not everything the first American pope says on this trip is directed at the American president.
The talk that I gave at the prayer meeting for peace a couple days ago was prepared 2 weeks ago. It was looked at as if I was trying to debate again the president, which is not in my interest at all.
The trip is overshadowed by the most unusual war of words about the Pope's peace message, ignited by President Trump last week.
Pope Leo said things that are wrong. I think he's very weak on crime and other things.
Leo did not back down.
I have no fear of neither the Trump administration nor speaking out loudly about the message of the gospel.
As the president continued to double down.
I have a right to disagree with the Pope.
The criticism unusual. Christopher White is the author of a book on Leo and a veteran of multiple papal trips.
Did you ever think you'd ever see something like this?
This conflict is unprecedented. On the other hand, it does sort of make sense. Pope Leo and President Trump have very different leadership styles, very different visions of the world.
Now some in the president's own party advising Trump to move on.
I think he wants a better world. But I don't agree with him about this new holy war with the Pope.
As the Pope works to try to keep the focus on his trip.
This weekend, Vice President J.D. Vance, who is a recent convert to Catholicism, posted he was grateful. The Pope said he did not want to get into a debate with the president. There have been disagreements between the Vatican and the White House over the years, but we have never seen anything like this, Stephen.
Getting a lot of use out of the word unprecedented.
Yeah.
All right, Ann, thanks so much. Well, here in the U.S., the 130th Boston Marathon is getting underway this morning. But in China, a half marathon with a big difference is grabbing a lot of headlines there because it features, yes, robots competing against humans. NBC News International correspondent Janice Mackey-Freyer went along to watch it and has all those details for us. I've just been glued to this video. Fascinating stuff, Janice.
It really is. Good morning, Stephen. A crowd of robots running down the road is quite a sight. There were over 100 humanoids racing beside 12,000 human runners. And the race results, a sign of where the future may be headed and just how far and fast these robots can go.
In the race to build robots that are faster and smarter, big strides are being made here in China. At a half marathon pitting more than 100 humanoid robots beside 12,000 real-life runners, the machines were on the move. Some whipping by at speeds up to 15 miles per hour, leaving the entire field behind. The winner, called Lightning, finishing the 13 miles faster than any human ever, 50 minutes 26 seconds, shattering the current world record by nearly 7 minutes. It was a technological leap from last year's race, when only 6 of 21 humanoids finished and the rest fizzled. This time, nearly half the robots were autonomous, running on their own without people controlling them. While it all seems a bit science fiction, the spectacle here speaks to a bigger race between China and the U.S. to develop machines that think and move like people. Intercity technology robots can run, groove, even get sassy.
You are making my circus feel all warm and fuzzy.
Robots today have the body of Mike Tyson, but need the brain of Stephen Hawking, says the CEO. Once that's solved, the scope for imagination here is immense.
You ready? Go.
Humanoids are expected to someday be capable of doing nearly any job, from critical repair work to caring for the elderly. In that sense, it was reassuring the race was not without its setbacks. There were face plants and stretchers, some finishes showing more flair than others, suggesting humans still have skin in the game for now.
When you compare the race to last year's, the advances in speed and endurance are really mind-boggling. If you want your humanoid robot to run super fast, that is. This company is more focused on robots for daily life, working with kids at schools, television correspondents in the evening. What I really took away from the race, Stephen, was the reaction of the human runners. You know, they're in separate lanes so that there are no robot-people collisions. But so many of these people who were running the marathon and being very conscious of their time were slowing down or stopping running altogether so that they could take photos of the robots as they were whizzing past. Everyone was so impressed with how fast they were going, the records that they were about to break. So eyes really are going to be on next year's race. Stephen?
I'll bet. It's really sort of chilling to see just how fast these robots are. Janice, fascinating stuff. Thank you. And now to a new kind of tech that is powered by AI that could help bridge communication gaps between deaf and hearing communities without human interpreters. It's split into two parts. One recognizes sign language and converts it to text, while the other translates written text, speech, or video into sign language. Brianna Borgi from NBC Boston shows us how it works and what it could mean for accessibility.
I never thought that I would see something like this in my lifetime.
That something is artificial intelligence designed to bridge the gap between the deaf and hearing communities. With two AI-powered tools just unveiled by Sorensen Communications, American Sign Language can now be translated in real time.
We've designed this system to focus on having the technology be faster than current solution, which is writing.
One tool recognizes someone signing and instantly converts it into English text. The other translates written text, spoken word, or video into ASL using a lifelike digital avatar. Here's an example.
I sent the team this script, and the avatar is signing exactly what I'm saying right now. This is incredibly helpful for deaf users when an in-person interpreter is not available.
The company says the goal is to streamline communication in places like stores, restaurants, and airports.
What makes this truly exciting really is to bring the AI behind it into all these real-world situations where there is hardware is present today, but we can just add our capabilities to it.
While these tools could expand access, there are still concerns about how the technology may be used.
I think consent is a big part of what we're needing to think about. Are we or are deaf people able to make the choice to use the technology or not. So I think that's a big question right now.
Brianna Borgi with that report. Sorensen said it will continue to develop this tech and find new uses. For example, it could eventually be used as another option for closed captioning. The company expects to bring the tools to market in a matter of weeks. Well, coming up, the search for answers. Survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse are hopeful that a new push by investigators in one state can shine light on the truth of what happened at one of his properties. The details coming up next. Back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with a trial of a man allegedly behind a major terror attack against U.S. service members in Afghanistan. NBC News legal affairs reporter Gary Grumbeck joins us now with all the latest. Gary, good morning.
Hey there, Stephen. Here's what's happening in politics now. The trial of the man accused of helping to plan a suicide bombing at Kabul's airport that killed 13 U.S. service members back in 2021 is set to begin today in Virginia. Mohammed Sharifullah was charged with providing material support to ISIS-K and was apprehended and brought to the United States early last year. Prosecutors allege Sharifullah planned a route to the airport for the attacker and communicated to other ISIS-K members that he believed the route was clear. If convicted, he could spend the rest of his life behind bars. The Department of Justice is demanding Wayne County, Michigan, hand over every ballot in their possession from the 2024 election within the next week and a half. In a letter to the county clerk, Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon said this request is to ensure federal election laws were not violated. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel is calling the request absurd and baseless. And if you live in the Mid-Atlantic, you've probably seen the ads. Voters are gearing up to cast their ballot on redistricting in the Commonwealth of Virginia tomorrow. The referendum seeks to bypass the state's bipartisan redistricting commission and allow new lines to be drawn. It would return map-making responsibilities to the commission after the 2030 census. The new map would split up Northern Virginia and create 10 Democratic-leaning districts and only one safely Republican district, a big difference from the current 6-5 split. That's what's happening in politics now. Stephen, back to you.
All right, Gary, thanks. Redistricting, very big fights this year. We appreciate it. Well, now to a new push for justice for survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse is unfolding in New Mexico. NBC News has obtained access to some of the land that state investigators recently searched. That includes details about the future of what was once known as Zorro Ranch. NBC News senior Washington correspondent Hallie Jackson joins us now for more on this. Hallie, I know there have been so many questions on what exactly happened at that ranch.
Yeah, and what happens from here, too, Stephen? You're right. You've got some survivors now and their family members who say they are hopeful that these new state investigations can shine a light on the truth of what happened at Zorro Ranch, as the new owner of that property shares more about what its future could hold. For investigators in New Mexico now, a closer look at the ranch Jeffrey Epstein owned there for decades. Nearly 8,000 acres, an hour outside Albuquerque, with its massive mansion, the pool, library, room after opulent room. To survivors of his abuse, a house of horrors.
It was very intimidating, and I always wondered if something would happen to me.
Rachel Benavidez was a newly certified massage therapist when she was hired at Zorro Ranch. It's where she says she met Epstein, who sexually abused her.
I thought I was the only one. Can you believe that? Like, when I would go out there and I would see all these girls, like, who I thought they were Victoria's Secret models, there was no way he was doing that to them.
For years, she's hoped for justice.
Does it feel like there were missed chances to hold him accountable?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Federal investigators never searched Zorro Ranch after Epstein was arrested in 2019. But this past March, the state of New Mexico did, after the attorney general there opened a new investigation following the Justice Department's release of millions of Epstein case files. The State House also greenlit a bipartisan truth commission. NBC News obtained a permit to access the land adjacent to the ranch. State investigators searched all of this in March. Epstein used to control this land back when the state leased it to him. But some wonder why that search didn't happen sooner and worry this could be the land of missed opportunities. Zorro Ranch was sold in 2023, purchased by a Texas real estate developer who has voluntarily cooperated with New Mexico investigators and wants to ultimately turn Zorro Ranch into a place of healing as a Christian retreat. Amanda and Sky Roberts, the sister-in-law and brother of Virginia Roberts Giuffre, offered to meet us at the ranch. Giuffre, who died by suicide a year ago, was one of Epstein's most prominent accusers. Her name on a cross in a memorial that sits just steps from the ranch's front gate.
It's really hard to look at that gate and think that that's the gate my sister went through, like to the gates of hell, basically.
Now they're looking to what's ahead, hoping for accountability.
I will say it's the most hope we've had since we've come forward, truly, about like seeing real prosecutions, because it's on a different level.
That's what the Truth Commission's about. They're looking at this open space and they're saying something more happened here.
Now, a spokesperson for the ranch's new owner tells NBC News that to their knowledge, no physical evidence of criminal activity by the prior owner was found by the state. A DOJ spokesperson tells NBC they welcome New Mexico undertaking additional investigations of the ranch and stand ready to help. Stephen?
So many people with those lingering questions. Hallie, thanks so much. Well, coming up, planning ahead. An increasing number of Americans are concerned about having enough money to retire. Our friend Caleb Silver is here with tips to save cash so you can better relax. That's coming up next. We're back now with a troubling new survey that's revealing just how many Americans are concerned about their retirement. More than half of those who responded said that even if they worked until retirement age, they didn't think they would have enough money to meet their needs. Investopedia's editor-in-chief, Caleb Silver, is here to break it all down for us. He's also the chief business editor for People Inc. Caleb, good morning to you. So out of the people surveyed, 10,000 people were looked at here. What were some of the top concerns they had about retirement?
Yeah, this is from Transamerica's Center for Retirement Studies. So they do this every single year, and every single year it kind of sounds the same, but this was interesting to me. Declining health requiring long-term care, that was front and center on people's top concerns. They're worried about that. It's that health finance thing. If you don't have your health, it could cost you a lot of money. If you don't have your financial house in order, that could cost you your health. Eliminating the reduction of Social Security, that's on people's minds. Outliving their retirement savings, not having enough because we are living longer and things cost more. And then that cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, dementia, all the things that we may see in some families, those end up becoming a financial burden and a stress burden.
A lot of the mortality fears really going hand in hand with these financial fears. This survey also highlighted other major things that are making it hard for people to save for the future. Break those down for us.
Yeah, a turbulent economy. When you have uncertainty in the economy, and we've had nothing but uncertainty over the last few years, really since COVID, that really puts people's savings in doubt. Do they have enough to live today and to live the future that they want? A lot of folks are worried, almost half, about job obsolescence due to AI, and I get that. That is a bubbling concern. Just know that 2 to 3% of the job losses last year were AI, completely dependent on AI or caused by AI, according to companies. 44% are worried about healthcare costs. Those keep rising. Healthcare has cost us, in terms of inflation, about 4% a year since COVID, higher than the normal rate of inflation.
Wow, some startling numbers there, and the panic, the worry people have really makes sense. What can people do, if anything, right now to try to help save for the future?
Yeah, the fact that you're scared and admitting it, that's the first step. And then talking about it, either talking about it with family so everyone's on the same page, or with a financial professional like an advisor, that's huge. Getting long-term care, a long-term insurance policy. I did that because I was concerned about being a burden later on in life. I got that now. Having a retirement strategy. How much does it cost to be you? A lot of people don't stop and figure that out. How much does it cost to be you today? How much will it cost to be the you want to be in retirement? And then, as I said, talking to a financial advisor or professional, that's really key. I did it. You don't know what you don't know until you talk to somebody who does this for a living.
Yeah, it is fascinating. Sticking your head in the sand is not the answer. It's not fun to figure out how much you cost day to day, but an important thing to undertake.
Be the CFO of your own life, and a lot of these worries might go away, but we know these costs keep rising, and a lot of folks are still worried.
Some good tips, as always. Caleb Silver, thanks so much. And keeping up now with the latest financial news, there is an update on the talks between American Airlines and United on a possible merger of the two airlines. NBC News business and economy reporter Ali Canal has more on our Money Minute. Good morning, Ali.
Good morning, Stephen. And yes, it's a merger that's apparently not happening. American Airlines confirming to NBC News that it is not interested in combining with United, calling any potential deal bad for both competition and consumers. The comment comes after reports of a possible tie-up, which would have been one of the biggest airline mergers in years. And sticking with the skies, Blue Origin, the space company from billionaire Jeff Bezos, hit a milestone over the weekend, successfully reusing a booster from its new Glenn rocket for the first time. It's a key step as it tries to compete with SpaceX. But the mission's main goal fell short. The satellite was put into an orbit that was too low to work properly and will now be brought back down. It marks the first major failure for the company's Glenn rocket program. And back on the ground, more self-driving expansion. Tesla says its robotaxi service is now rolling out in Dallas and Houston, adding to its existing service in Austin. The move comes as Tesla pushes deeper into autonomous rides, even as questions remain around safety and scale. And Stephen, I've yet to drive in a driverless car at this point, but it looks like if you go to Texas, the odds are increasing that you probably will be in one.
That's kind of terrifying. I'm from Texas, and imagining those on the Houston roads, I don't know if that's the greatest idea. I guess
I know.
We'll see. All right, Allie, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as America prepares to celebrate its 250th birthday in just a few short months now, one historian is planning his second walk to retrace Harriet Tubman's 750-mile journey on the Underground Railroad. Reporter Dominique Moody from NBC Washington has more on his fascinating mission.
In 1996, historian Anthony Cohen embarked on a 750-mile walk from Maryland to Canada. 30 years after that journey, Cohen will take those same footsteps again. Footsteps that Harriet Tubman took multiple times.
I wanted to honor Black history, which is American history, and I wanted to travel and meet with everyday Americans.
His return to the trail comes as the nation celebrates 250 years of independence. This time around, his mission to educate those about Tubman is a motivating factor for retracing the steps of the Underground Railroad.
Not only helped members of her own community reach freedom, but really all Americans.
Harriet Tubman Journey to Freedom, a 2,000-pound statue that depicts Harriet Tubman along with her niece. It will accompany Anthony on his walk to Canada, and it will have stops throughout that trek so that those throughout some of the states that he will be going to will have a chance to learn about her story. The statue's lone stop in the Commonwealth before the Freedom Walk was in Fredericksburg, a city with a history of enslaved Americans fighting for self-preservation.
The Rappahannock River, which we talked about a little bit earlier, 10,000 enslaved Americans crossed this and self-emancipated to freedom.
Those in the city say Cohen's effort is important to understanding the country's entire history, and getting the chance to see the statue in person is a memorable experience for those like 95-year-old Cleo Coleman.
I have had a passion for history for a long time. And I am so grateful, really, for all who helped to bring this about.
As for Cohen, he's getting prepared to embark on his second journey to Canada on foot, which is set to start on May 4th and end on July 4th.
And people start visioning what they want to do with the next 250 years, because we're not bound by history, right? We're only bound by our own limitation.
An incredible journey. Our thanks to NBC Washington's Dominic Moody for that story. And now over to the United Kingdom, where tomorrow would have been Queen Elizabeth's 100th birthday. In celebration, there are a lot of big events set for this week to honor the late monarch's life and legacy. NBC News international correspondent Danielle Hamamdjian is at Buckingham Palace with a look at all those celebrations ahead. Danielle, good morning.
Well, good morning, Steve. How many times have we stood here in front of the palace to talk about all the major milestones in the life of Queen Elizabeth II? Well, years after her death, her presence is still being felt. This morning, the UK preparing to commemorate the woman who was at the centre of British life for generations. Today, crowds flocking to watch the changing of the guard outside Buckingham Palace ahead of celebrations. Her family set to honor the late Queen with events throughout the next few days and their own memories.
There are so many elements of her legacy that Charles wants to curate. He's almost the editor of that piece that's being written about her life.
For the public, many across the UK and the world will perhaps think of those rare moments they saw her in person. Just 10 years ago, marking her 90th birthday, the Queen and Prince Philip joined thousands of well-wishers in Windsor. But that connection began decades earlier. On her 21st birthday, a young Princess Elizabeth addressed the nation, making a promise that would shape her life.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service.
It was a promise kept. Crowned queen at just 25, she was gifted with a long life of service.
Is Your Majesty willing to take the oath?
I am willing. 4 jubilees would come to mark her reign. And as the world around her changed, presidents and prime ministers came and went, but the English queen remained a constant. A new BBC documentary explores her life and legacy with an appearance from one of the 13 American presidents she met throughout her reign.
By virtue of her having known every world figure through the entire 20th century.
Your Majesty, you're looking well.
She's a link to history.
Queen Elizabeth II will live on in many ways. A national memorial is in the works. On Tuesday, her daughter, Princess Anne, will officially open a garden in her mother's name in London's famed Regent's Park.
I think every single Brit this week will at some point stop and think about the Queen and the impact she had on our country.
And ahead of the Centenary Week, Britain's Royal Mail announced the release of a set of 12 commemorative stamps honouring her late Majesty. They feature Elizabeth from childhood until her late reign, each stamp showing a headshot imposed over a wider image to highlight a different decade of her life and work, with a nod to the dogs and horses she so dearly loved.
So we have new stamps, a new garden, a new statue, etc. The list goes on. But we're also going to have here tomorrow a reception hosted by the King for those who share a birthday with the Queen, who were born on April 21st, and many of them born in 1926. It'll be a very special 100th birthday party. Steve, back to you.
I'm sure it'll be a sight to see. I hope corgis are heavily involved in that. Danielle Hamamjian, thanks so much. Well, still to come, unstoppable runner. One Massachusetts teen is not letting some life-altering health challenges get in the way of his chance to run a version of the Boston Marathon.
You could give me cancer. You could give me chemotherapy, but I'm still not going to stop.
Love that. How he's inspiring others with his own version of that race. That's coming up next. Welcome back. Let's wrap up this hour by introducing you to one special 15-year-old who's set to conquer his own version of the Boston Marathon despite some life-altering health challenges. NBC News Now anchor Hallie Jackson shares his story and how he inspired others every step of the way.
Hey there, we've got a really special one for you about one young athlete's refusal to let cancer slow him down.
My strength is greater than any struggle in front of me.
15-year-old Wesley Arujo is unstoppable. Here in the hallway at Boston Children's Hospital, he's determined to finish a race unlike any other.
I'm here to win, and I'm here to finish this battle as strong as I can.
The Massachusetts teen is battling leukemia. But the lifelong athlete had his eyes on another feat, turning his daily walks into something much bigger.
My physical trainer came in and she was talking about like the Boston Marathon, and she goes, actually 552 laps around my pod is a marathon. And when she said that, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this right away.
That's when Wesley got going, completing lap after lap and hundreds of trips around his hospital floor. The distance? The same length as the Boston Marathon, 26.2 miles.
You could give me cancer. You could give me chemotherapy, but I'm still not going to stop.
He did his first marathon in just 6 days. And when he reached that final lap, the hospital floor becoming a finish line with cheers fit for a champion. Strength and resilience for the fighter who says he's never giving up. What would you say to people who've gone through what you've had to go through?
This is not the end. You have so much more to live for than you even imagine. Everybody's rooting for you. You got this. If you put your mind to it, you could do whatever you want to do in life.
And that is good advice for all of us. Back to you.
Love it, Hallie. Thanks. That is a story to start your Monday. And that's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now. But your news continues right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.